この番組はご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りします。Alrighty, welcome everyone. I'm Teeaboo and I am pretty excited this morning because it is the second to last episode of this season of Mob Psycho, episode 12. Last time on Mob Psycho 100, we got a pretty awesomely balanced episode between crazy Sakuga, cool fights, like interesting character stuff, and pushing the plot forward. At present, Sho is fighting his father, and he does not seem to stand a chance. Sorry, buddy. But Mob is walking up the stairs and taking the responsibility of taking this guy down. We'll see how this actually plays out. The last season's big climactic fight didn't quite end the way that anybody expected it to, except for the manga readers, of course. But I don't know. We'll see what they do this season. I'm going to not talk too much. I want to get right into it. So I've got it up. It's at 0 seconds. There will be multiple versions of this video as usual. You can find picture-in-picture versions with the video up there in the description down there, and a timer-based version on YouTube with any discussion, run through, frame by frames, whatever. Timer-based version will have a beep beep timer. That timer will go boop 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 beep, and on the beep and the green light, that's the same frame that Mob Psycho starts playing on my screen. So if you're playing along with your own version of Mob, that's probably when you want to hit the button. Beep beep timer goes here. Straight into the OP. Never gonna complain about that. Because it's a really good OP. This is T, by the way. The Battle for Social Rehabilitation? Subtitled Friendship. Ah. Not Umbrella Guy? Huh. They captured the Prime Minister as a hostage? Oh right, this guy's an idiot, isn't he? Somebody who Mob could potentially convince. Oh. Still. Hired. Flashback for Umbrella Guy. Not quite. So he's afraid of his powers. Neither is he. He's gonna explode. But that's what he wants. Yeah. Yeah. Bullshit. Ah, so he gave him the umbrella. Hmm. That was quick and effective. Cool. Employee? Yeah, true. He's taking that sometimes you gotta be harsh thing. And we set up his snapping. What a freaking frame. Huh? Wow. Hmm? Instant explosion. Yeah. That's the battle. Mob sees himself in that. Hmm. But he does. Tick, 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 tick. Sees you as a tool. He hit 100. I feel you, Dimple. What? What? That's new. That's really new. He put himself into it. And so they share an understanding. What? Okay. He has power gifting? Fuck. God damn it. We just saw Mob sort of absorb powers. That big stockpile. Uh-oh. What is an absolute being? Is that what's in Mob? Nah, I'm gonna fight. You're way too kind, Mob. Ho. He? Umbrella guy? Yes, he has. He didn't just tell him, he felt it. Right. Right. Clear statement. There we go. He's gifting him energy. He has the same ability. Oh. Oh. No. Show. Yeah, probably a good idea. So his idea is to nip that in the bud. Prevent him from blooming into a threat. Later, Dimple. What if he can't get through? What if the boss is completely a stone wall to what Mob is thinking, what Mob is saying? Uh, he has it. Purely for your own pride? Not anymore. Here we go. Ow. Show, stay out of this. Reigen with a gun. Oh? Right. He doesn't. Oh, really? That's one of them, isn't it? Nice try. It's worked before. Did he just kill Reigen? No, right? Umbrella guy. And the umbrella burns away. And he's not freaking out about it. Hello. 100% rage. Still fully conscious, though. Oh my god. The plant user? Or is that Mob doing it? It's Mob doing it. No, it is the plant user. And he's turned. More worried about each other. Output 10%? Is that the boss's? Using up his previous power? Yeah. It is. But there is a stage beyond. Ho. Ho. Indeed. Boss fight, the final light. Okay. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to go through the episode and compile some notes for discussion, and then see if I can create a more organized discussion. Just want to try something slightly new, because I feel like I didn't really take notes this episode, and there are things that I want to talk about that I'll forget if I don't do it this way. Yeah. Okay. So I've spent about half an hour now going through this episode and writing stuff down, and just trying to wrap my head around all of the things going on, because there are a lot of threads and a lot of really interesting lines in the episode. As far as like general production and animation, there were some really cool cuts, especially in the later the start of the later fight between Mob and the boss. There was some cool character animation and punches. But that's not really what I want to focus on this episode, because this episode I see as a discussion. If you've seen Super Eye Patch Wolf's video about what makes a fight scene interesting, what we have here is exactly in line with that. It's and maybe it's a little bit of setup for it, but we've got Mob and the boss having a debate about how one should live, and I'm still struggling to figure out where to start in terms of what I want to talk about. But like, do I start with Umbrella Guy and his backstory and the reveal that Mob has this emotion absorption and memory transfer ability, or do I start with the main philosophical conflict between the boss and Mob, but in a greater sense between like a self-contradictory philosophy and one that's internally consistent? Like, I don't know. So when I started out taking notes, I just wrote down a bunch of things that I thought I would probably want, and then I went through the whole episode and I wrote down any of the lines and like little side notes for those. So I guess we'll just go through it in the same order that I wrote it for the most part, and I'll probably end up jumping around. So bear with me, because this might get tangenty. So the first thing that pops into my mind would be the title, reintegration into society. What is the exact title? Battle for Social Rehabilitation and Friendship as the subtitle. So this hikikomori backstory for Umbrella Guy, whose name it just escapes me and I wasn't able to find it quickly. It's a really interesting backstory, because he's set up as like the perfect prey for the boss's mentality. He's super anxious and completely isolated, and he serves as a mirror for Mob, for what Mob could have become potentially. But his like position, as far as I see it in the story, is to reveal a crucial contradiction in the boss's like mentality and philosophy with his actions, because the boss repeatedly states his individualism, right? His like his he doesn't need to rely on other people because he's so strong. He thinks that everyone is against him. He just wants to leave his mark on the world. He's completely against the idea of bonds between people. He thinks they're worthless and useless, and everything comes down to individual strength for him. But at the same time, he where's the quote for it? I don't know, but he Yeah, he didn't give you peace. He gave you the idea that you can't live on your own and chained you to the organization. So while he's spouting this individualism, his actions are tyrannical. He says he doesn't rely on others, but he absorbs their power and uses them and distributes his power. Like his ability is inherently a bond between him and people where there's like an exchange of power, but he uses it in a completely self-centered way. It's like his whole philosophy is to gather as much power as he can and crush anyone in his path and sort of make his own. It reminds me quite a bit of Griffith from Berserk to make his own staircase to his castle in the sky out of the bodies of the people who he fights with and fights against. He just cares about himself and his own road and creating that road and paving it with others. But at the same time, he's like using the desire of other people for friends. Like Umbrella Guy specifically, his primary motivation is I wanted friends. And the boss uses that. He turns that into a way to use Umbrella Guy. I find it really interesting that Umbrella Guy calls himself an employee of Claw, and he equates that with regaining his place in society, which is sort of like on the face of it, it's just not true. Like Claw isn't a part of society; they're an underground organization, but Umbrella Guy is so anxious and engrossed, or not self engrossed, but he's like self confined. He doesn't watch TV. He doesn't, he spent what 15 years as a hikikomori. He doesn't know what's going on in the world, and so it's really easy for the boss to convince him that becoming a higher echelon member of Claw is what he can do. It's regaining a place in society, and it may be trying to say something about Japanese salaryman culture, but I don't know. I don't know enough to know. An Umbrella Guy kind of clings to this. He gave me a reason to live. As Mob sort of pushes his buttons and breaks through his rather carefully constructed rationalizations, his shell of this is why I'm doing what I'm doing and it is right, that he's convinced himself of, Mob sort of breaks through that piece by piece, telling him they're not your friends. And as this guy says, he gave me a reason to live. Mob counters with, but he doesn't see you as a person. He sees you as a tool. And he offers himself as a friend. If you have no one else to talk to, I'll be your friend. It's sort of self-sacrificial in a way. Like, not that Mob is hurting himself for it, but that he's willing to take on that responsibility of being a friend to this guy when he knows that that's all that he really needs. It's kind of sweet. After Mob offers himself as a friend, Umbrella Guy still fires off a super powerful shot, and that leads us into this interesting reveal of an interesting level of Mob's powers. Reigen says it himself later when we cut to them outside, that Mob's ability to express himself and express his feelings to whoever he's talking to is his greatest strength. And I think that's true and right, and that's how the character has been written. And now we have an in-world, in-universe like representation of that as a psychic power, sucking up all of the energy from the attacks that Umbrella Guy throws at him, and from that being able to understand him, to see his past and feel what he feels. It's not just like the power to express, but it's also the power to understand. He and then even more than that, to understand someone else's point of view, to understand their mindset, their perspective, which comes up later in the talk between him and the boss. To understand that, then to mix it with his own and send it back. And this is like a psychic powers representation of the way that human interactions and bonds are formed. That's how you create a friendship, is by listening to other people, taking their input, mixing it with your own, sending it back and going back and forth until you come to some kind of an agreement, or at least some kind of an understanding of one another. And we see it in Umbrella Guy's eyes. As soon as Mob sends the power back at him, he realizes that they are similar, that they're more the same than they are different. And everything that he had said before about, like, how could you ever understand a kid like you who has your whole life in front of you? You'd never get me. All of these barriers to interaction that Umbrella Guy has put up sort of fall apart, and Mob is able to get through to him, and we get the sort of the cut to a card, like a just blank card that says friendship. Kind of beautiful. Mob uses his power of expression, his power to express himself, in order to create bonds between himself and other people. But he also has to understand them in order to do that. That's really powerful. And then he takes it a step further once he climbs the stairs and meets Sho, who's beaten down. You know, Sho says some stuff that makes Mob realize that he was the one who burned his house down. And Mob, who just a couple episodes was absolutely enraged by that, just forgives him. You must have a lot going on. Even though he doesn't have the time to, like, make a direct bond between himself and Sho, he realizes, because of what happened with Umbrella Guy and what has happened to him before, that most likely Sho had his reasons for doing this, and fighting him over something like that is probably silly. You must have a lot going on. And then the conversation between Mob and the boss really begins. Mob says that winning and losing isn't the be all and end all in relationships between people. It doesn't have to be a power struggle. There can be mutualistic understanding. And the boss retorts with stuff like bonds with others are absolutely meaningless, which flies in the face of everything that Mob has learned over the course of the season. And then we cut to Reigen and the others outside, and Reigen says the perfect thing. He says that Mob's ability to express himself to the person he's fighting is his greatest strength, not his crazy telekinesis or anything like that, but the power of speaking his truth to the world. And now Mob has a way to use that in order to fight. That's kind of amazing. Mob's philosophy is one that I agree with. He says that everyone lacks something, everyone has deficiencies, and we need other people to fill in for each other so that we can all make the world go round. We saw this expressed in sort of a prototypical form earlier when he was talking to the guys who were shoplifting, where he says, like, could you have made those things that you stole? Could you have created them? You need other people. You don't have, you know, you're arrogant to think that you can just take and steal. But the boss thinks he's better than that. He thinks so highly of himself. He thinks, I have this great power, greater even than all the other espers, so I feel like the entire world could fit into the palm of my hand, like I could control it all. He dismisses this idea of... He dismisses Mob's entire mindset. His entire value of bonds, he just throws it away and just says that your mindset halts progress, right? Your desire to be friends with people prevents you from becoming what you could be. But the question in response, from me at least, is, well, what are you progressing toward? What is the real goal here? And he says later, stuff like, I just want to leave my biggest mark on the world. I just want to leave a huge mark on the world. But why? I have no need for others to complete me because I can steal, use, and rule. But why? What goal do you have? If just ruling the world is the end game, what are you going to do with that ability? What are you going to do with that power? I don't think there's an answer there. I don't think that he's thought that far into the future. It's just that since middle school, as he says, he realized he had this ability and he's become obsessed with making it. He's become obsessed with reaching a specific goal that he set for himself, but it's a goal without meaning. It's just to become the greatest, to become the strongest. So when he says your mindset halts progress, Mob comes back with a kind of a no you. We develop by meeting and learning from others. And he finishes it with saying that no one should be able to place a value on another person's mindset. At the same time, the boss is completely dismissing his own. I'm not the one stuck in a rut. You are. By cutting yourself off from everyone, by seeing everyone as just tools, by refusing to form bonds, by devaluing the relationships between people, you've stopped learning. You've stopped learning from other people. You know, the boss said earlier that he traveled around the world uh, gaining experience, but all that he took away from that experience was this knowledge that he is the strongest, right? His focus is so he's got such blinders on. He's so tunnel visioned on this idea of how powerful am I related to, in relationship to other people, that he doesn't learn from other people. He doesn't learn any of the value of other people or the bonds between people. And so when he says stuff like you still don't understand how powerful I am, it falls flat. It feels empty because he might have this great power, but it's not great. It doesn't do anything for himself or for society or for anyone. It doesn't have a reason. My goal in life is to leave a huge mark, but why? Reigen's earlier statement that Mob's ability to express himself and get through to people is his greatest strength leads me to ask the question, what if he's up against someone who is so stubborn and so set in their ways and their mindset that he can't get through to them? And I think that's what we get in this episode, because as the fight brews, and we'll come back to Reigen, but as the fight brews and gets more climactic, gets built up a bit more, Mob starts to try and express himself once more. He says, those who don't understand the feelings of others, and then he cuts himself off. He realizes that there's no way he can get through to this guy. There's no chance that he's going to convince him with words. And so he says, never mind. Sometimes you just need to be hurt to truly understand. And beyond being a really badass line, he's learned from his own experiences that sometimes you gotta beat it into somebody. Somebody who is standing there saying, I am the greatest in the world, nobody can touch me in terms of power, isn't going to back down until you show them that's not true. And I think that's what Mob is going to do in the next episode, or at least try. And I assume that he'll succeed to some extent in some way. Okay, let's go back to Reigen's appearance. I don't quite know how to read this portion of the episode, because there are sort of two things that go on. One is that Reigen realizes that he should be with Mob, and I'm not sure how that fits into the whole thing of bonds, but it seems to align, but I don't know quite how. And then the second thing is the irony and what the boss and Reigen talk about. The boss says to him, after he realizes that this guy is calling himself Mob's master, or Mob is calling him master, and yet this guy doesn't seem to have any kind of psychic ability or even the ability to see psychic powers. He says, so, he looks down on him, and this is something that's been happening to Reigen all season. He looks down on him. So you're also someone who tricks people and steals from them. And in one way, this kind of is true. This sort of hits the nail on the head, but it's also like the wrong angle on what Reigen is and who he is. it makes me want to step in and try to defend Reigen, but I don't know like what ground to stand on here, because while while Reigen while Reigen has a really good relationship with Mob, and I think it is a mutualistic relationship where they both gain a lot from each other, I don't think that he's got a good answer to this call out. You know, he gets called out, "You're someone who tricks people and steals from them," and Reigen just responds with, "How ironic," you know, or "This is ironic," or it was something like that. He doesn't really dispute it, so I'm not sure how to read into that. He tries to make a play of pretending to betray Mob and then punching the boss, and that just doesn't work. But it was a good try. It's worked before. And then Mob's bonds start to pay dividends. This friendship that he's created with Umbrella Guy comes up big. As the boss attacks Reigen, Umbrella Guy jumps in and saves him, and in the process, his umbrella, this powerful symbol of, I don't know, his one-sided bond with the boss, is burned away. And he doesn't freak out because he's got something else. He's got a friend now. That's really cool. And then as the fight, as the episode comes to its climax, the plant guy reappears and says, "Sorry, but I owe him one," as he catches all of the other people out of the air. Again, Mob's actions coming back to help him in these kind of final moments of the battle. Really interesting. And the boss sees this, and there's something weird about this line. Apparently, I'm now in a situation where anyone can betray me. And then he turns and starts like eliminate, eliminate, eliminate. I think this line is kind of demonstrative of the boss's failures in thinking, his failures in logic. Because saying I'm in a situation where anyone can betray me, first off, you put yourself in this situation. Second, you never had loyalty to begin with because you didn't have a mutualistic relationship with anybody. You never valued bonds, but now when people are turning and betraying you, you see the downside of that. It's weird because the boss is so wrong, but so close to right. It's exactly what I like to see from villains. It's a philosophy that makes sense but has some kind of innate flaw, either in its assumptions or uh, in the logic of it. In this case, I think it comes down to the assumptions. The boss assumes that he is, that it's not even that he is the most powerful being. He really is pretty close. And he assumes that because of that, his duty sort of is to take over the world. But he doesn't have like a good reason for it. He just assumes that that's what he's supposed to do and what will give him something. It's not like he even has some like, I will be fulfilled if only I can take over the world. No, he already feels like he's fulfilled. He just wants to leave his mark. It's really interesting. Whereas Mob is constantly running into other people and learning from them and trying to grow as an individual regardless of his psychic abilities. The boss has taken this idea, he's taken his psychic abilities, been like, well, I'm the strongest. I'm just going to show everybody that I'm the strongest by doing whatever the fuck I want. Now, for the theory craft and stuff, this ability that Mob expresses to take and distribute power, and that we saw that the boss has, coupled with the line "only one absolute being can blah blah blah," makes me think that the boss and Mob, the boss who is talked about as a being of pure energy, it makes me feel like that thing that's in Mob, whatever it is, that maybe the boss has one too. But I don't know. Um, It's been kind of an ongoing mystery as to what that is within Mob, what weird, powerful entity is within him. The boss seems to have a taste of the same thing. So we'll see. I really like this episode. It's a little bit of a weird one. It's so focused on this series of discussions between Mob and other characters. The rest of the fighters take like a backseat. The rest of the former Claw members and the other Espers are all just like, only a couple of them even have speaking lines in the episode. They're all just sort of sitting outside waiting for Mob to take care of things. I guess you could say that they're relying on him, that they trust him. Really interesting episode. Made me think. I don't feel like I've done it justice in this discussion, despite going and writing all of these notes. It's just so much was said, and I don't know how to do it justice. That's too bad. If I think of anything more that I want to say about the episode, I'll say it in the beginning of next week's for the finale. But for now, I've gone through all of my notes, and I think I've touched on all of the things that really stood out to me. So I'm gonna wrap it up. I've been Teeaboo. This has been Mob Psycho 100, Season 2, Episode 12. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, and I hope to catch you next week in the next one. Peace.